Today on Blue World, Jonathan goes to the Bahamas in search of the world's friendliest hammerhead shark. But first, he needs to get his bandana back from a pod of dolphins. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
It's a windy day aboard the Dolphin Dream dive boat, and we're heading towards prime dolphin territory. The Blue World and Brave Wilderness teams have been diving in the Bahamas for a few days now. We had some epic shark diving with lemon sharks, Patches the hammerhead, and tiger sharks. We even went shark diving at night. But today it's time to try something completely different. We're looking for dolphins. Finch is scanning the horizon for dorsal fins.
Now, it's a little known fact that in order to get dolphins, you actually have to summon them to the boat. And to do that, you have to perform the summoning dance, sort of a ritualized dolphin-bringing thing. And we don't really know how to do it, so Finch is going to give cameraman Tim and cameraman Bill a lesson.
Like this.
And it actually works. Soon, a small pod of spotted dolphins have converged upon the bow of our boat. They love to ride the pressure wave in the bow wake like underwater surfers.
Dolphins on the starboard side! Dive, 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 dive!
Dolphins are too fast for scuba gear, so we just use a mask, fins, and snorkel. The dolphins are curious, but they lose interest quickly. So, to keep them engaged, we have to swim as fast as we can and splash around to pique their interest. Even when I'm swimming as hard as I can, the dolphins are barely moving. But pretty soon we get tired, so Houston brings out an electric scooter. The dolphins love the scooter, so they swarm around Houston as he spins and twirls underwater like a blue-jeaned ballerina. One really fun way to engage the dolphins is to offer them a bandana to play with. They love to pass it back and forth, but their favorite thing to do with it is to play keep away with the pathetic humans. Even though they don't have hands, they can carry the bandana on their pectoral fins, dorsal fin, and even their flukes. Mark tries to get close enough to grab it, but this dolphin says no way. Finally, he drops it, and now it's my chance. Psych! He is taunting me. Come and get it, slowpoke human. The dolphins steal a lot of bandanas. I wonder if they have a stash of them someplace under the reef or something.
So one of the things about the bandana game is sometimes the dolphins don't give the bandana back. So you go through a lot of bandanas. So the best thing to do is to actually cut your bandanas in half. Because a half a bandana works just fine, and you get twice as many chances just in case the dolphins steal it, which they like to do. So now we have a whole bunch of these babies. And these are the perfect size for the dolphins to catch on their pectoral fin or good stuff.
Even though these are spotted dolphins, many of them have no spots. That's because they're born spotless. As they get older, they will start to get a few spots around age 2. But fully mature spotted dolphins are completely covered in spots. This mature female is swimming with her 2-year-old calf and pregnant with her next calf. Even though the 2-year-old wants to come over to investigate me, Mom keeps herself between us for a while until she's sure I'm not a threat. Later, they swim by again, and the calf gets a close look at me and my big camera. Even though the juveniles are more curious, sometimes even the adults like to play. Here's something you don't see very often: dolphins blowing bubbles. Who knows why they're doing this? Maybe it's just fun. After we start getting really tired, the dolphins get bored and go off to play amongst themselves. The dolphins have lost interest in us, so it's time to head back to the boat.
What'd you think of that, man?
That was awesome. Love diving with dolphins.
It's like the most fun you can have when you're almost drowning.
Yeah.
What do you think, Timmy?
It's unbelievable. Hey, here's our ride. Let's go back and do it again.
Yeah, let's go back and do it again.
So the trick with dolphins is keeping them interested. When they get bored, they swim away, and we have to get back on the boat and sort of chase them down again, and then jump back in the water. So it's a process of jumping in, getting out, jumping in, getting out. Because they get bored because we're slow, we're boring. So you have to keep them engaged so they get them back on the bow. All right, let's go. Let's go!
We catch up with the pod and jump back in. Finch is on the scooter this time, trying to keep them engaged. And they still have my bandana. Is Mark petting the dolphin? Not many of the dolphins like to be touched, but some of them actively seek being petted. soon, the parents all come back to collect the kids at the playground, and after a few playful passes, they head off into the blue. Please note that they did not give my bandana back.
Yeah, no, there's 8 total, including.
That was unbelievable. Most amazing experience in my entire life. Swimming with those dolphins was unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Locked eyes with dolphins, swam with them, dove down, then kind of spun around. You just maintained eye contact the entire time. Yeah. Life-changing. Unbelievable. Can't believe it. Can we go back, please?
I can't think of many wild animals that will actively engage with people, never mind play a game of keep away. Dolphins are definitely one of the smartest and most curious animals in the blue world. It's a beautiful day in the Bahamas, and it's about to get better because I'm meeting up with Coyote Peterson. Hey, man! How are you? Mark Vins and Mario Aldecoa from Brave Wilderness to help with the creation of their new show, Blue Wilderness. We start in Grand Bahama and sail north on a liveaboard dive boat called the Dolphin Dream, one of my favorite boats. Our destination? Tiger Beach, a famous place where tiger sharks interact with divers. Upon arrival, the crew starts chumming. Then we suit up and hit the water.
Tiger by the tail.
We have tons of sharks. Our team and the guys from Brave Wilderness are having a blast. We're getting lots of great footage. Most importantly, the main attraction has shown up. We have multiple tiger sharks swimming around us. Coyote even gets up close with the tiger. But then things get even more magical with the arrival of a rather special shark, a great hammerhead named Patches. Great hammerheads are usually quite shy. It's extremely unusual for one to get right up to the camera like this, so after the dive, Mark and I ask Captain Jared about her.
Jared, tell me about Patches. Tell me the history of this shark.
All right, so Patches showed up at Tiger Beach about 2 seasons ago. She wasn't too playful when she first came in. She'd hang out around the outside of the dives a lot. But as she got used to the divers and watched the tiger sharks doing their thing, coming in and feeding, she started to slowly make her way in. And once she started getting comfortable with us, she'd let us feed her some pieces of fish. We used to catch fresh fish for her because she was a bit of a picky eater. And then she got more and more comfortable with us and let us get a little bit more hands-on with her and pet her. And then once that happened, she pretty much just stuck around. And so she's quite special for us at Tiger Beach because she's the only hammerhead we know that acts like that and stays in that area.
So is it a rare experience to get up close to a hammerhead like this at Tiger Beach?
Most hammerheads, they're quick. They come in, they spend 10 or 15 minutes. They don't really go that close to everyone. They kind of like move through, get their food, and get out. But with Patches, you'll see that she'll come in, play with the diver at the bait crate, then go and spin through all the divers at the dive site and then come back in. So it's quite special the way she interacts with people.
With this magnificent shark hanging around the boat, Mark and I know that there's no time to waste. We quickly suit up for another dive to film Patches while she's here.
All right, Mark, let's go see if we can find Patches.
Hammerhead sharks, let's do it!
Yeah!
The minute we hit the water, Patches comes right over to investigate us near the surface. She exhibits the classic hammerhead tilted swimming behavior, which has only recently been scientifically studied. It allows the great hammerhead shark to use its tall dorsal fin as a wing to increase lift, reducing swimming effort. Patches passes extremely close to me, but her proximity is in no way aggressive. She's clearly just curious. She's the kind of shark that underwater photographers dream about. Cooperative and friendly, coming super close to the camera, but in no way threatening. Patches just seems to go back and forth between me, cameraman Bill, and Mark. And sometimes she likes to demonstrate how hammerheads use the mass of their hammer and their incredibly flexible body to turn on a dime, like no tiger shark ever could. Patches is my new favorite shark of all time. Eventually, we sink down to the sandy seafloor next to the reef, and Patches follows us like an excited puppy. Soon, our dive master Houston has joined the party with a crate full of fishy snacks. We all gather around, cameras at the ready, to begin filming the shark feed. And Patches isn't about to be left out of the action. She's the only hammerhead I've ever seen that will swim into a feed with a bunch of tiger sharks. She's just as long as the tigers, but nowhere near as girthy and powerful. Yet she sticks up for herself, even pushing one of the tigers away by whacking it in the gills. Nearby, a lemon shark is resting on the bottom, knowing well enough to stay away from a bunch of feeding tiger sharks. Lemons can gulp water to breathe and rest on the bottom. But not Patches. Great hammerheads are called obligate ram ventilators. They're one of the few species of sharks that need to keep swimming to ram water down their throats and into their gills. So they keep moving and usually have their jaw open. It looks aggressive, but it's just respiration. She may have to keep moving, but her super shark power is turning. Great hammerheads can turn much tighter and faster than tigers, and even reef sharks, which are far smaller. Turning so tightly, Patches can make twice as many runs at the chum box, so she gets more chances to be fed. And her persistence pays off. Houston doles out some nice, yummy fish. We have 3 tiger sharks on the dive, and normally even 1 tiger shark would be amazing. But Patches still steals the show. She's the star, and I think she knows it. She just keeps making passes in front of everyone, and we aren't going anywhere as long as we have air to breathe. But alas, no scuba tank lasts forever, and soon we have to make for the boat. Patches follows us up to the swim step, but we definitely are not afraid, only thrilled.
Dude! Most cooperative hammerhead shark ever!
Is this real life? Did that just happen? Guys, that hammerhead was enormous.
And unbelievably friendly.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a segment. Jonathan, thank you.
Good work, man.
Dude,
Nice.
yes. That was awesome.
At the end of a long day diving with the world's most awesome hammerhead, I can only wonder if I will ever meet her again. With any luck, Patches will return next season so other divers can get to know her and develop an appreciation for one of the most spectacular shark species in the blue world.
Today on Blue World, Jonathan goes in one cave and comes out another. But first, a trip to the Philippines in search of an elusive dugong. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
In the waters of Florida and the Caribbean, there exists a gentle marine mammal called a manatee. Because they often live inshore, close to people, and have enjoyed more than 40 years of protection from hunting or harassment, manatees are often quite friendly. Many of them have become acclimated to gentle interactions with people. But the manatee has a wild cousin called a dugong, living far away in the Indo-Pacific Ocean. This animal is still hunted in much of its range. It's shy and hard to approach, wary of humans, and exceptionally rare to see underwater. Which is why I have come to the Philippines, one of a handful of places in the world where there are enough dugongs left to have a chance of seeing one in the wild. I'm heading to Busuanga in Palawan, Philippines, a remote and beautiful area where the endangered dugong still roams wild. But I didn't come alone. Award-winning IMAX filmmaking team Howard and Michelle Hall have joined me on this trip. They've been here before and agreed to give me a hand with this daunting and challenging assignment. Our journey begins with a flight from the capital city of Manila down to Busuanga. Then a drive from the local airport to the water. Next, we take a ferry ride across the bay to our home away from home, El Rio y Mar Resort on the north side of Busuanga. We arrive just after sunset in time for dinner. The next morning, we awake to fog in the nearby hills and our dive boat, a traditional Filipino bangka, ready to go. We get our gear together and load the boat. It's going to be a long day.
Good morning.
Good morning.
In the experienced hands of Captains Benny Martinez and Wilmar Bansalan, we set out on our first day of adventure. Dugongs are wild animals that roam the ocean freely, and it's a big ocean. But we know where they saw dugongs recently, so at least we know where to start looking. Unfortunately, that spot is 2 hours away. Since it's going to be a while, Howard and Michelle do the only logical thing: take a nap. I've never been here before, so I spend some time watching the scenery go by. I'm always amazed by the natural beauty of the Philippines. Lush green hills surrounded by beautiful warm water filled with untold species of animals to be discovered and filmed. Eventually, we make it to the area where some dugongs were last seen, and we start looking. With experienced eyes, dive masters Omar Linsingan and Brian Daramas begin scanning the surface of the water. Dugongs are solitary animals, so they're looking for just one. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. After driving around looking for an hour, at last we spot a dugong.
1, 2, 3.
Yep, there's his nose. What a shot. There he goes. Good one.
Oh, nice.
There's no time to waste in suiting up and getting into the water. We don't really need to make a stealthy water entry because we're anchored really far from the dugong. We will swim several hundred yards to reach the dugong because the boat spooks them. We follow Brian for a few minutes, looking around carefully in anticipation of finding the dugong. Finally, we find it, and Howard takes the lead, sneaking up on her while she's sleeping. The master at work. The dugong is covered in remoras, suction cup-equipped fish that hang around larger animals for scraps. But why are there so many around this dugong? Michelle films from above for a shot of me and Howard inching closer and closer to the dugong, hoping it will tolerate our presence. But when the dugong wakes up and finds 2 cameras in its face, the scene is over as it swims away. This is definitely going to be more work than filming manatees in Florida. With Howard and Michelle leading, we head back to the boat. With the light fading, it's time to head for home. Back at the resort, we enjoy a beautiful Philippine sunset and get a good night's sleep. The next morning, we're heading back, cameras at the ready. We find a dugong quickly this time, so we get suited up and into the water as fast as we can. Today is nice and sunny and the water's a little clearer on an incoming tide. Omar leads us to the dugong, and this time we get lucky. The dugong is actively feeding, and fortunately, he's more interested in food than us. So as I sneak up close for some shots, he doesn't seem to mind. Like manatees, dugongs are herbivores. They eat only plants, and their favorite plants to eat are seagrasses that grow in the sandy seafloor in shallow water where there's plenty of light. While there's no shortage of this aquatic salad for dugongs to eat, it's not exactly dense in nutritional value. So dugongs need to spend more than half their lives chomping away at seagrasses and packing in nearly 100 pounds of it a day. Dugongs and manatees are in fact the only completely herbivorous marine mammals. So in spite of reaching the length and weight of a small car, dugongs are completely harmless. A school of golden trevally are hanging around because as the dugong feeds, he scares up shrimp and other creatures hiding in the sand. It's an easy feast for the fish. The dugong also has those other freeloaders. More than a dozen remoras are hanging on to him and following along. They must drive the poor dugong absolutely crazy because every once in a while he engages in an elaborate ritual to try to rid himself of some of them. It starts with some acrobatics, rolling and twisting in the sand. The acrobatics kicks up a bunch of silt and reduces the visibility to near zero in a giant cloud around the dugong. Once the dust cloud reaches epic proportions, he shoots out of the cloud and zooms away at up to 15 miles per hour, which is actually pretty fast underwater, and literally leaves the remoras in the dust. Unfortunately, the remoras always seem to catch up again. I keep watching because I really want to know why so many remoras hang around. What is their interest in the dugong? Then I see it, and it's pretty disgusting. The remoras eat the dugong's poop. Dugongs eat a lot, so they poop a lot. For the remoras, the dugong is like a swimming poop vending machine. If you are what you eat, that explains why even sharks won't eat remoras. Like dolphins and whales, dugongs are mammals. Their ancient ancestors once lived on land. But in spite of their similarity to whales, dugongs and manatees are more closely related to elephants. Since they're mammals, they must rise to the surface to breathe every few minutes. While the dugong can hold its breath for 15 minutes, they tend to breathe much more frequently than that, every 3 to 6 minutes. In spite of their similarity, dugongs and manatees have one striking difference. The tail of a dugong looks like the fluke of a whale or a dolphin. A manatee, on the other hand, has a rounded paddle-like tail. The dugong has a huge range spreading across the tropical Pacific and Indian Oceans all the way up into the Red Sea. The dugong is highly endangered in its entire range, but the strongest holdouts of stable populations are in northern Australia and the Arabian Gulf. Most countries now protect the dugong, and ever so slowly its numbers are growing, bringing this remarkable, harmless, and I would say adorable marine mammal back from the brink of extinction. As our new friend settles back into a nap, pestered by his annoying, poop-eating remora freeloaders, I watch for a while, having finally gained his trust. But then, with our scuba tanks getting low, it's time for the long swim back to the boat. It took me 20 years to finally see a dugong in the wild, but with continued protection, it's my fervent hope that dugongs will be much easier for future generations to see here in the wild blue world. It's a cool morning in North Florida with steam rising off the warm Suwannee River. This section of Florida is known as cave country because it's made of porous karst limestone and full of caves. There are hundreds of caves here. Zach, Todd, and I are heading out for a day of cave diving adventure. We're meeting up with our good friend Wayne Kennard, who's taking us on one of his favorite dives today. So we head over to his dive shop, Amigos Dive Center in Fort White.
Hey, Wayne!
Good morning, Jonathan.
How are you?
Doing well. You ready to go dive peacock?
Yeah, man.
It's going to be the best day ever.
Let's go.
Let's go.
All right.
First, we rig and fill our scuba tanks.
We put all of our stuff in poor Wayne's truck.
Next, it's off to Peacock Springs. It kind of looks like a swamp at first. Even from the air, it doesn't look that inviting. But this is a really popular cave dive with easy access provided by a beautiful set of stairs.
So, Wayne, tell me what we're going to do here today.
Well, we're at West Skiles Peacock Springs State Park. We will make our entrance here, right in the Peacock one, and we will swim through these tunnels, passing a place called Pothole, where there's some deer bones and other animal bones, and until we reach Olson Sink. We will then surface at Olson and compare our thirds and how the dive is going, and then turn around and come back in the same route that we took back to the exit of Peacock 1 where we originated our dive.
So what we're doing today is called a traverse, where we go in one cave entrance and pop out another. But the second entrance is close enough that we can make it on 1/3 of our air supply, so we can turn and go back again on the same scuba tanks. Next, it's time to suit up. Wayne hoofs his big back mount doubles down to the water, but Todd, Zach, and I are using side mount, so we will don our tanks in the water.
You ready? All right.
The water in the spring is pretty green and a bit murky, but as we drop into the cave, it's much clearer. Like most caves that see a lot of divers, there's a stop sign at the edge of the cavern zone, warning people to go no further without cave training and equipment. We get our cameras white balanced and follow Wayne into the darkness. Almost immediately, Wayne finds a blind cave crayfish. Over thousands of years living in caves, these little crustaceans have lost their pigment and eyesight. This species grows to about 2 inches and is only found in Florida and Georgia. Even though it can't see me filming, it can sense my presence and moves away as I get close. As we progress further into the cave, I feel like I'm swimming through an enormous piece of Swiss cheese. Over thousands of years, water flowing through these passages has slowly dissolved the limestone, making the passages larger and larger. We're careful not to kick up the silt on the bottom of the cave, which would ruin our visibility. Wayne leads us to a little shelf that the local divers call the pothole. This is where people have placed bones that have been found in the cave for easy inspection. Wayne holds them up, but he can't tell me what they are, so I'll have to wait and ask him after the dive. This one looks like a turtle shell. And this one looks like a cow skull. He carefully puts the bones back where they were for other divers to see, and then we continue on our way. Soon we reach the 600-foot arrow. Line arrows always point the fastest way out of the cave, so this one is telling us that the entrance is 600 feet back the way we came. The cave passages are getting larger in this section, and it doesn't take us long to reach a double line arrow. We're now exactly halfway between Peacock 1 and Olsen Sink. Both line arrows point the way out, 700 feet either way. So we keep following the line towards Olsen Sink through some pretty cool passages. We enter a low section of cave perfect for side mount, but Wayne manages to fit with his back-mounted tanks. Soon we can see some light at the end of the tunnel ahead. Wayne goes first, up through a small opening towards the surface. One by one, we all emerge into Olsen Sink, a tiny blue pool in the middle of the forest.
Oh man, that was great!
Yeah, super great.
That's a long swim.
It is. A lot of interesting creatures down there.
Well,
should we head back in?
I guess we should head back. We got a long swim.
We got us a swim ahead. It's been a great day. Let's head back.
Wayne leads the way back into the cave. We kicked up a bit of silt squeezing through that small restriction, so we have some murky water to get through. But soon we pass back into the nice clear water in the cave and begin our long swim back to the Peacock 1 entrance. On the way out, we have the current at our backs, so the swim is easier. We make good time. When we enter the low section again, I notice pockets of our air have collected on the ceiling, looking like liquid metal. The limestone walls are an ancient seabed, so they're full of fossils and shells. Finally, we make it back to the stop sign in the cavern zone, and we ascend back to the light of day.
That was great.
That was really amazing.
My trip to Peacock Springs was a great success because not only did I get to go cave diving, but I also did my first traverse, swimming all the way to Olson Sink. It's only 1,400 feet, just less than 5 football fields away, but in a cave, that's a pretty long swim. Fortunately, there was a lot of cool stuff to see along the way. Cave diving is one of my favorite ways to explore the blue world.
Today on Blue World, the team discovers and explores a blue hole in the Bahamas. But first, high current diving in Palau. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
The Republic of Palau is an island nation consisting of more than 500 beautiful, unspoiled islands in the Pacific. Camerawoman Julia and I have traveled halfway around the world to visit this tropical paradise, exploring both above and below the water. Our diving this week will be aboard the Rock Island's Aggressor, a luxury live-aboard dive yacht. Palau is located 500 miles east of the Philippines in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, pristine waters for world-class scuba diving. We've already done some incredible dives and experienced some of Palau's spectacular underwater wonders. We have visited coral caverns, found lots of sea turtles, met a curious Napoleon wrasse, and swam through walls and walls of fish over healthy reefs. But one thing we haven't seen much of: sharks. Yet Palau is known for its shark action. One of the only places we've seen sharks so far is off the stern of the boat. Blacktip reef sharks often approach large boats looking for some free food. Fishermen often throw their scraps to the sharks. So, where are all the rest of the sharks? Well, it turns out they like to hang out in some places where the diving is not so easy. After a few days of getting used to the underwater conditions, now our group is ready to take on a legendary dive site. We awake in a small protected bay off the island of Palau in the southern part of Palau. Palau is notorious for being the site of the bloodiest battle of the Pacific during World War II. Here, the United States and Japan fought for control of this tiny island in a battle that took over 2 months. 13,000 men lost their lives. Remnants of the battle are everywhere. During the battle, American troops stormed Palau Beach, now a peaceful lagoon. Just off the beach is Palau Corner, a reef that juts out into the ocean with a steep drop-off. Extreme currents rip up and across this reef, and this is where we're diving.
If the current is strong, we're not gonna hook in. We're just gonna drift.
The morning begins with a dive briefing, and we all need to pay close attention because this dive site can be dangerous.
We can go to the corner, but we usually just stay at shallow depths rather than just right on the reef.
But we're ready.
You should make a dive for 2,300.
We drop into the water and quickly descend to the reef, which is bathed in clear oceanic water. The dive masters have dropped us upstream from the dive site, so we can drift with the current down to the perfect spot on the corner of the wall. This part is easy. Once we reach the spot, we have to fight the current to stay in position and maneuver to our desired places. Once we get there, we do something quite uncommon in scuba diving. We actually anchor into the reef with a short line that has a hook on it. Then we flap in the current like flags. This actually does less damage to the reef than having a bunch of people hanging on and kicking the coral. We float above the reef without any effort. And soon we have gray reef sharks around checking us out. So why are they here? The strong currents bring nutrients and plankton, which attracts large numbers of fish. They don't mind the current, and that attracts sharks. Unfortunately, because the sharks are here for fish, they have little interest in us. So sometimes they don't come very close. But every few minutes, a curious shark makes a pass to have a look at us. Without the reef hooks, this dive would be almost impossible, especially with a camera. The safest way to conduct this dive is to keep the group together. So after a while, we all unhook at the same time and drift down the reef to be picked up by the boat. We pass a large school of jacks. And a white-tip reef shark. And then a huge school of fish comes by. These are sailfin snapper, also known as blue-lined sea bream. Astonishingly, these are normally solitary fish. The only time they get together in schools like this is to spawn. And this school of fish seems to go on forever, like a river. But the shark action, as it turns out, isn't quite over. Just as we're getting ready to ascend to the boat waiting above, a huge shadow emerges from the blue. It's a whale shark! She's not the biggest whale shark I've ever seen, but whale sharks are extremely rare in Palau for some reason. And this is the first time most of the dive masters have ever seen one in their lives. As she heads off into the blue, everyone's a little disappointed. But I've been around whale sharks a lot, so I keep my camera ready. They often circle back for a look. And here she comes. I believe whale sharks are pretty intelligent and truly curious. Of course, when you see a whale shark, you have to do a celebratory dance. Whale sharks are so rare that when we tell the crew back on the aggressor, they don't believe us.
Are you serious?
They actually saw a whale shark?
Are you serious?
As we celebrate over lunch, Captain Ike drives the boat out to open water on our way to the next dive site. Our next dive will be in the German Channel, where we will experience what could be described as an underwater river dive.
So we kneel down for a while, wait a little bit.
Soon we're on our way to another adventure involving strong current. We begin the dive at the mouth of the channel where the tide is pushing water up into the channel. With reef hooks in place, we wait for some shark action. A few sharks pass by, but there isn't too much going on. So we unhook and do a drift dive with the incoming current up the channel. The coral flies by, and we don't even have to kick. Scuba Steve is impersonating a manta ray. When we pass a couple of giant clams, I tuck out of the current to get a few shots. Even though giant clams are protected, it takes a long time for them to get this big. Although they feed on plankton by filtering it from the water with their siphons, they also collect solar power with the photosynthetic symbiotic algae in their skin. Soon I continue on my extremely strenuous dive, making my way back to the boat. Zooming at high speed back towards the aggressor, Captain Ike spots something in the water off the port side of the tender. A huge pod of dolphins is converging on us quickly. Dolphins love to play in the bow wave of boats. It's their version of surfing. Zach runs to the bow to catch the action with a GoPro. I can't believe he even got an underwater shot. Soon we get too far from their stomping grounds and the dolphins turn back. And we return to our floating palace.
Don't go away. The Blue World team is about to explore a blue hole in the Bahamas.
The islands of the Bahamas are filled with formations called blue holes. They look like ponds, but they're actually deep holes in the limestone formed by erosion over thousands of years. In previous episodes of Jonathan Bird's Blue World, we have explored some of these mysterious sinkholes, like Cousteau's blue hole on Andros. Some blue holes were formed when the sea level was lower, thousands of years in the past. Now that the oceans are higher, those blue holes are underwater. These ocean blue holes are filled with seawater. Because ocean blue holes often lead into cave systems, which connect to other ocean blue holes, water can be pushed through these cave systems as the tide goes in or out. This strong current in the cave can suck a cave diver in to his death. The Exuma Islands of the Bahamas are famous for ocean blue holes. Recently, we explored Angelfish Blue Hole, a well-known and easily accessible ocean blue hole of Exuma. But today, we're on a mission. We want to find and explore an undiscovered ocean blue hole. Since the water in the Bahamas is so clear, and the ocean blue holes usually occur in a shallow spot, they can be seen from the air. But that also means they can be seen from a satellite. So we start our search with Google Earth. We're hunting for a dark spot that could be a blue hole and not too far from shore. Cameraman Zach has zeroed in on a possible candidate.
So you think that's a blue hole?
That's a blue hole.
The next day, we head over to see our friends Tamara and Jonathan at Dive Exuma to get some scuba tanks for our adventure. Then it's off to a remote part of the island in a quest to find our blue hole. On a lonely section of the island, we come to the end of the road, and there should be an ocean blue hole just offshore. Wow! There has got to be a cave down there. I think we should launch the drone and have a quick look before, yeah. All right, let's do it. Zach of all trades launches the drone for a peek. And from the air, it looks promising. It's definitely a deep depression in the sea floor. It has all the makings of a great cave dive. But the only way to be sure is to get a look underwater. From the shore, it looks pretty close, but it's actually a long swim. So cameraman Zach can scope it out faster by snorkeling than we could with all of our scuba gear. With the knowledge that there probably is a cave to explore, we start suiting up and preparing for the dive. After a long swim, we finally make it all the way over to the blue hole and submerge. There's no sign of that sea turtle, but there is a big school of grunts. The walls leading down into the depths are steep, and soon we're entering the cavern zone. There's an old lost fish trap. Zach ties off his reel, and we head into the cave. We can feel that the current is coming out of the cave, so it's safe for us to head in. Along the walls of the cave, there are all kinds of life that you don't see diving inland blue holes. The constant flushing of seawater brings nutrients and food to creatures in the cave. A lot of the fuzzy-looking stuff on the walls of the cave are hydroids and other invertebrates that sting humans. But crabs are immune. When Zach reaches the end of his primary reel, he ties on another spool. After progressing another 100 feet into the cave, something starts to feel different. So I check the current. Now the sand is getting sucked further into the cave. The tide has turned. It's time for us to get out of here, and fast. Back in the cavern zone, we can see daylight from above. We slowly rise into shallower water to do our mandatory decompression. In an inland blue hole, this might be kind of boring. But here in the ocean, there's plenty of marine life to observe. A school of tangs are nibbling on algae. A lionfish is stalking prey. Lionfish are absolutely beautiful, but they're an invasive species in these waters. It seems like fish love the entrance to a cave. But fish aren't the only residents here. Under a shelf, I find an army of spiny lobsters all lined up as if guarding their domain. Spiny lobsters don't have big claws like the lobsters in the North Atlantic, but their thick antennae are covered in sharp spines, making them formidable weapons. Finally, our decompression is completed and we can ascend back to the surface. We make our long swim back to shore, where Zach of all trades is waiting to hear the report. Mission completed. Ocean blue holes are beautiful and intriguing formations only found in a few places on Earth. Exuma is blessed with dozens, maybe even hundreds of these mysterious hidden gems. But people only regularly dive a handful of the easily accessible ones. We set out to find and explore our own blue hole, and there's a great sense of pride and satisfaction in finding something new and mysterious. We have no way of knowing if we were the first ones to dive this blue hole. Maybe not. But it's safe to say it's unlikely that very many other people have ever seen the inside of this cave. And since it has no official name, we've decided to call it the Blue World Blue Hole.
Today on Blue World, Jonathan discovers a lobster hotel in a cave. But first, he meets one of the most colorful and vocal fish in the Caribbean. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
The island of Cozumel is a picture-perfect example of a diver's paradise. Crystal clear water surrounds the coasts, and just offshore, verdant reefs filled with healthy populations of fish, invertebrates, and sea turtles. Within the reefs, there are cracks and holes, some of which large enough for divers to explore. But the ones where divers don't fit become home to marine life. Fish hide from predators. Sharks rest. And in smaller holes, a rare reclusive fish, the splendid toadfish, one of the most photogenic and sought-after photo subjects in the Caribbean. In our search for this little beauty, Zach of all trades and I fly on down to Cozumel, Mexico, just off the coast of Cancun. We head on over to the marina, where we stop in with our friends at Scuba Life. These guys cater to small groups of divers like us. We fill out some paperwork, and we're on our way. While Captain Alex is taking us out to the dive site, I chat with JP, an expert toadfish spotter. He assures me we will find some toadfish. There are a lot of great dive sites around Cozumel, but we're heading to a place where JP knows of toadfish to be seen. I can't wait to get in the water and do my favorite thing, scuba diving.
Well, let's go find some toadfish.
When we hit the water, Zach, JP, and I don't even have to swim. Cozumel is famous for its drift diving. Water flows past the island like a giant river, so we just ride the current and glide above the reef. It's not a very good workout, because you just lay back and let the scenery go by. No kicking required. The problem comes when you want to stop. I find a hawksbill sea turtle chomping on sponges, so I have to kick to stay in place and hunker down. You would think that sea turtles would be experts at feeding in the current, but in her pursuit of the tastiest bites, she gets herself turned around backwards. Woohoo! Soon she decides to look in a different spot, and I realize just how hard it is to swim into this current. Making any headway upstream is nearly impossible. Captain Alex dropped us upstream of the spot where we'll find the toadfish, so we can have a nice drift over the reef. JP leads us over into a really nice section of coral. But you have to look fast, because if you go shooting past anything, it's not that easy to get back to it. Some of the fish play in the current, and some of the fish hide from it. A grouper hangs out in his living room and watches the action out the front door. When I pop in to say hi with my lights, he decides to take a swim around the neighborhood and get some exercise until I'm gone. Every little protected area on the reef has a school of fish hiding from the current. And most of them would rather pose for my camera than swim away. They're used to divers floating by. An arrow crab has taken refuge in a sponge, a soft bachelor pad to chill. As we continue downstream, we finally reach Toadfish City, and within 30 seconds, JP points out the first toadfish. So what is so special about this little fish? It has only been found in 2 places: the reefs of Cozumel and the reefs of the nearby island of Isla Mujeres. It's a super rare fish and normally doesn't come out of its den during the day. Its chin whiskers, called barbels, are chemosensitive, helping the fish find food in the sand. And while you might think they're called toadfish because they look a little bit like toads, they do something else. The croaking sound is made with the swim bladder, so they don't move their mouth to croak, and this is thought to be a mating call.
Hey ladies, come check me out!
Even though I have a pretty cooperative toadfish here sitting still for my camera and bright lights, I sure would like to see the whole fish. JP keeps looking. As the afternoon goes on and the light levels get lower, we have a better chance of finding one out looking for food. JP finds a lot more toadfish in their dens. Maybe some of them are listening for just the right croak from a potential partner. But then JP calls me over, and there it is, something I've never seen before. A splendid toadfish out of its den. It was probably looking for food, and now it's a little unsure what to do in front of my bright lights. I know the encounter isn't going to last long. And this is what you can't normally see. The spectacular yellow coloration. What could it possibly be for? Probably not camouflage. Maybe to attract a mate. Tired of my lights, the fish turns and disappears into the reef. Yet, amazingly, JP, the fish whisperer, finds another one. You can see that the toadfish has a pair of fins under its body called pelvic fins, used almost like a stubby little pair of legs. It can stand up and even walk on those fins. The sun really is getting low now, and so is our air. JP inflates a surface marker buoy to send up so that Captain Alex can find us. Who knows how far we drifted since we splashed off the boat.
You know, I always wondered why they called them toadfish, but now I know. It has nothing to do with how they look. They croak!
Cozumel is a fantastic dive destination. The current feeds nutrients to the reef, and as a result, the life on the reefs flourishes. There are so many fish and sea turtles, every dive is exciting. And it's nice to know I'm not the only one who can be clumsy. The splendid toadfish is a rare gem of a fish, found in the water around only 2 islands in the whole world. It's a beautiful and, yes, splendid inhabitant of the blue world.
Don't go away. Jonathan and cameraman Zach explore a cave in the Bahamas.
In recent years, I've become fascinated with cave diving. I've been diving in caves in Mexico, caves in Florida, and caves in Abaco, Bahamas. They all have one thing in common. These caves are accessed by land. But there are also caves on the bottom of the ocean. So I'm on my way to the Exumas, a beautiful chain of Bahamian islands, to explore some ocean caves. The Zacks and I land on Grand Exuma to begin our grand adventure. The Exumas are located in the southern Bahamas, a quick flight from Miami. They are known for being some of the most beautiful islands in the world, with super blue water and white sand beaches. But also, they're known for having a lot of ocean caves. We've brought all of our cave diving gear, which makes for an impressive pile of luggage. Soon we're off, and these are not the best roads we've ever seen. We head over to Dive Exuma and meet owners Tamara McGaw Robinson and Jonathan Robinson.
Hi, Tamara.
Hi, Jonathan. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. You ready to go diving?
Yes.
Right, let's go.
Let's go.
Jonathan is the boat captain, and today also the dive master. Zach and I start setting up our gear while we wait for the rest of the divers to show up. Soon everyone else is here, and Captain Jonathan, I like the sound of that, gives us a quick boat briefing. Then it's time to push off. We only have a 10-minute ride to the dive site, which is near Stocking Island, just across the bay. Stocking Island has a picture-perfect bay providing safe anchorage for a bunch of sailboats. But right in the middle of this bay is a blue hole, an underwater cave entrance. Captain Jonathan gives the group a dive briefing. Most of the divers on the boat are not cave divers, so they're only going to see the cavern section where they can see daylight. Cameraman Zach and I, however, brought full side-mount cave gear to do a deeper inspection. It seems weird to be donning this stuff on a boat. Once all the open water divers have hit the water, we gear up. I've never done a water entry from a boat with side-mount gear, so here it goes. Graceful. It's been really windy recently, so the visibility's a little murky. But as we sink down, we immediately find the huge, yawning mouth of the blue hole. Zach leads the charge as we sink into the deep. Heading down, we pass one of the other divers. As it gets darker, we start switching on our video lights. As the opening narrows, we can feel the strong rush of water coming out of the cave. Ocean caves are tidal, which means sometimes water is rushing out and other times it's rushing in. You never want to dive one of these caves when the water is rushing in, because it might suck you in and you won't be able to get back out. This is about as far as the other divers can go, with the light of day visible so they know the way out. Zach stops to film the cave walls. Unlike the bare rock walls of inland caves, ocean caves are full of encrusting marine life on every surface, like hydroids and sponges. It can be very sharp and some of it stings, so we definitely wear gloves. Some of the sponges are quite colorful and beautiful. This encrusting life even grows on the cave line. We struggle upstream in the current. It's over 100 feet deep, and we're exerting ourselves, so this kind of dive can be dangerous. I can barely hold myself in position for a shot kneeling on the bottom. I'm really glad this current is trying to push me out of the cave, not the other way around. Forget about the classic cave diving frog kick. I need to kick as hard as I can to make forward progress. Fortunately, all the silt I'm kicking up goes immediately downstream. We discover why the cave line in this cave is not just a thin string, but a thick rope. Sometimes you need it to get around a corner. After fighting our way into the cave for 20 minutes, we finally turn around and enjoy floating out with the current. So easy and relaxing. The strong current through these tunnels coming from somewhere deep out in the ocean brings a constant supply of nutrients from the open ocean to feed all of the creatures growing on the walls, floor, and ceiling. It takes barely 90 seconds to get back to the cavern zone where I can see light from the sun and a school of parrotfish. Captain Jonathan is standing there waiting for us like Aquaman. The current shoots us up and out of the blue hole. In fact, we have to be careful not to ascend too fast. Zach stops to film some fish. We both have decompression stops to do. The dive wasn't long, but it was deep. We slowly make our way up into the shallows. There isn't much to see in this small bay. Finally, we surface at the stern of the boat.
Man, that was quite a ride. Woo! Is Zach still with me?
We pass our tanks up, having completed our first ocean cave dive. But that's not all we're going to see today. Captain Jonathan has another neat cave to show us. We take another 10-minute ride across the bay to a secret spot and suit up again. In just 15 feet of water, there's a small crack in the bottom. It's tiny, but with side mount gear, we can sneak in there. Zach goes first to investigate, leaving his camera behind. The flow out of this crack is amazing. He can barely make headway. A minute later, he comes back up and it's my turn. He passes me my camera and I head down, light rays bouncing off the sides. When I get to the bottom, I'm in a super narrow cavern zone. I can't go very far before the passage is too small, but I do find a lobster hotel full of tons of huge spiny lobsters. Then I turn and head back up towards the sun. I emerged super excited just because that was a really cool experience. Ocean caves are extremely different from inland caves, subject to tidal flows which can change direction, and full of marine life decorating the walls. They can be a lot of work to explore, but so satisfying as well. Fortunately, we have several more blue holes to explore on Exuma, so the fun isn't over yet in the blue world.
Today on Blue World, a cave dive with sharks. But first, something even weirder, swimming with pigs. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
The Bahamian Exuma Islands are famous for being some of the most beautiful on Earth. They're known as the yachting capital of the world, a haven for swimming pigs, and of course, an ocean blue hole dive paradise. Wait a minute, swimming pigs? This I've got to see. My adventure begins with a flight to the remote Exuma Islands of the Bahamas. As we fly in, I can see why people say they're so beautiful. Look at that water. The Zacks are excited. Soon we land on Great Exuma and load our van. take a trip up north to Exuma Point Beach Bar to rendezvous with local celebrity Elvis Rowley. We load our gear onto a small boat, and Elvis takes us out. We make a short run to a small island just offshore. As we pull up to the beach, we're greeted by a welcoming committee. And they wade right up to the boat. Some say that the pigs were stranded here after fleeing a sinking ship and swimming to the closest island. Others insist that the pigs were left long ago by sailors to fatten up so they could be eaten later. But this is not a very good place to fatten up a pig. There isn't much to eat and no fresh water. Elvis throws them some bread, which is a favorite snack. Of course, pigs are notoriously not very picky eaters. Sometimes he brings vegetables or whatever he has on hand. The pigs don't really care. But of course, I like to swim with the marine life, so in I go.
Find out. Hey guys! Up in.
With a piece of bread, I want to see if I can get a pig to demonstrate actual swimming. And yes, they can actually swim. They also know who has the snacks. And is there anything cuter than a swimming piglet? The pigs have this entire island to themselves, and while they can forage for their own food to a degree, Elvis does need to bring out fresh water for them to drink. We're having fun playing with the swimming pigs, but we came to go cave diving. So the next day, we grab our gear and head on over to Dive Exuma. We load the boat and start putting our cave diving gear together. Then Captain Jonathan pushes off, and we're on our way. Heading to Stocking Island, a favorite destination for the yachting crowd because of the extremely well-protected harbor. And within this harbor, something easily visible from the air, the entrance to an ocean cave that goes under the island. With the boat moored only a few fin kicks from the entrance to the cave, cameraman Zach and I start suiting up. My water entry is as graceful as ever. Then we descend. We've timed our dive just past slack tide, so the tide is gently pushing water out of the cave. This means we swim against the flow to get into the cave, making our return trip back out of the cave safer and easier. Fish love to hang out in the entrance to the cave, but we pass right by, heading towards the darkness that lies beyond. At the back of the cavern zone, Zach ties his reel to a rock, then leads the way ahead. The water coming out of the cave is not that clear. Recent storms have churned up the ocean, and this water's coming in from somewhere under the ocean on the other side of the island. The murkiness makes it pretty spooky. The walls of the cave are absolutely covered in colorful sponges and tunicates. fed by a constant supply of ocean nutrients forced through the cave by the tides. These simple animals thrive in complete darkness, their color never seen unless illuminated by artificial light. Eventually, we find the remnants of an old guideline placed in the cave untold years ago by previous explorers, but not suitable for use anymore. So Zach carries on with his reel. Unfortunately, we soon hit the end of the line, literally. So we tie on a spool and keep going. Eventually, we reach an older section of cave line that looks pretty solid, so we tie on. There is so much marine life on this line that it looks like a rope reef. As we proceed further into the cave, following the rope along the silty bottom, the walls begin to narrow. As the water flows through this thin slot in the rocks, the velocity of the water increases, so swimming against the current is more difficult. Our air consumption rises. Protocol in cave diving means that you can only use 1/3 of your air on the way into the cave. You leave another third for the swim out, and the last third is for reserve in case of an emergency. And even though I really want to see what's around the next corner, we have to turn back. Fortunately for us, the swim out is super easy because now we're going with the tide, gliding along with very little effort. We follow the reef rope back to Zach's spool. Hand-winding the spool fast enough to keep up with the water movement is a challenge. Winding the primary spool is a lot easier. And within only a fraction of the time it took to swim into the cave, we reached the cavern zone again. Of course, knowing that we would get a fast, free ride out of the cave, we could have gone past our thirds and explored a little further, but that's breaking the rules, and cave diving is one place where you don't break the rules. Of course, that extra air means we have plenty of time for an extended safety stop watching the fish in the cavern zone. And finally, it's time to head back to the warm sun above us. Captain Jonathan helps us remove gear in the water to make the ladder easier.
That was sweet. That was an awesome dive. Nice.
The Exuma Islands of the Bahamas are a beautiful place. The blue water and protected moorings make it special for sailing, but the ocean caves make it exciting for cave divers, one of the few places in the world with so many such dives. I don't know when we'll be back to the Exumas, but I sure wouldn't mind another dive trip to explore more of these unique underwater formations in the blue world.
Don't go away. Jonathan finds reef sharks sleeping in caves.
Contrary to popular belief, many different kinds of sharks rest on the bottom. But reef sharks are not a species normally associated with this behavior. However, we learned of a place near Cozumel where reef sharks seem to be sleeping in coral caverns. So Zach of all trades and I hop on a plane to Cozumel to investigate. Cozumel is an island famous for scuba diving right off the coast of Mexico near Cancun. It's known for very clear water and lots of fish, but also for exciting drift diving because of the moderate current. In recent years, it has also become popular in the cruise ship crowd, so most of the dive shops cater to larger groups of divers from the cruise ships. However, I'm heading to Scuba Life Cozumel, a shop that caters to smaller groups of more experienced divers who want to do more. At the shop, we'll fill out some paperwork in preparation for tomorrow's big adventure. JP has been fascinated by the caves of the sleeping sharks for many years, and is one of the only people who knows where they sleep and how to find them. With Captain Alex at the helm, we leave the marina and set up our gear. My hopes are high that we can fulfill my dream to find and film a sleeping shark in a cave. As the sun rises, we're going past all the other dive boats out to a special spot that only JP knows about.
Well, this is the part I hate, getting suited up. It takes so long. Whew, that took forever. Time to go find some sharks.
We sink down to the reef, and the current is not that strong, which isn't a good sign because the sharks like to sleep when the current is stronger. But we still have a look. We find a large, fearless, spiny lobster posing bravely for my camera. But I can't spend time here when we have caves to search. The caves here are not really caves, but in fact coral caverns. You can always see light from the opening. But I must admit I'm a little apprehensive about coming around a corner and frightening a sleeping shark. The walls of the caverns are covered in marine life, such as coral and sponges, making them very colorful. Zach of all trades and I are having a blast swimming through this labyrinth of tunnels, and it's sort of like an intro to cave diving for Zach. Above my head on the ceiling, I notice there are a lot of lionfish hiding. Lionfish are invasive species in the Caribbean, eating all the baby fish of other species, so the dive masters in Cozumel, as in many other places in the Caribbean, are trying to control the population. JP spears a large one on every dive to do his part, but it won't go to waste. As we leave the caverns and work our way back up the reef, I can see how healthy these reefs are, with tons of coral and sponges. JP leads the way into another cavern on our shark hunt. We look everywhere, but we just can't find a shark. Eventually, we're low on air, and it's time to head back to the boat. JP launches an SMB, a surface marker buoy, so Captain Alex can find us as we drift with the current away from the dive site.
Well, we got to the cave, but no sharks.
As the day progresses, the ocean is getting rougher, but conditions are getting better for sharks because the current is picking up too. So we move the boat to another cave site and hit the water again. JP has located a number of shark caves, but there's no way to know when a shark is in there without going down to look. And this one looks empty. But JP brought the lionfish just in case there are any sharks nearby that might want a snack. We have a look inside just to be sure. There's a Caribbean reef shark hanging around, but she's definitely not sleeping. Maybe she's hungry. The tangs certainly are. She definitely can smell lunch and seems interested. But as a small juvenile shark, she's scared of us and keeps her distance. So JP places the lionfish on the bottom, and we back up to see what she does. Because of the toxic spines on even a dead lionfish, sharks need to pick them up carefully. And eventually, she makes off with her prize. We take one last look around the cave to see if any sharks came to rest, but it's still empty. We move to another location, but this one's going to be a challenge. As I hit the water, I'm pulled away from the boat before I can even reach up for my camera. The current is ripping. We sink down and fly over the bottom, no cave in sight. We missed it completely. So Alex moves the boat a little further upstream from the cave, and we try again. This time we make it to the cave, but again, no sharks. I'm beginning to wonder if these sleeping sharks really exist.
No sharks?
No sharks that time.
After 10 hours on the boat, we're well into late afternoon. This is our last chance, and the last cave that JP knows about. Somehow we hit it perfectly. The entrance is guarded by a school of snapper. Snappers? What is the plural of snapper? Fish. As we approach the mouth of the cave, JP sees a shark. I have no idea where he seems to be pointing. I don't see squat. Honestly, I think he's pulling my leg. But I go in there anyway, and I can't believe my eyes. A big, sleeping Caribbean reef shark way in the back. I'm afraid I will spook her if I approach too quickly, so I start by filming from 10 feet away and slowly work my way closer. But she doesn't seem to care. She lets me get right up close. She really does seem to be sleeping. There are a couple theories about what the sharks are doing. One study found that fresh water was seeping up from the seafloor into these caves, making the salinity lower, which might help remove parasites from the sharks. But since the sharks only seem to come here when the current is strong, another theory suggests that they can rest easier when the current helps push water through their gills. Whatever the reason, this is the only place in the world where sharks seem to go into caves to sleep. And they really are snoozing. Eventually, I end up only 3 feet from this large shark, and she hasn't moved a muscle. Unfortunately, this cave is 110 feet deep, which means even with nitrox, I don't have much time. All too soon, we need to head back to the surface. But first we celebrate. JP delivered. We have a long decompression stop before we can surface, but I sure don't mind because we nailed it. What a day. As we head back to the dock at the end of the day, I'm so excited to have visited a place I read about in a magazine when I was a kid, and to have seen a natural behavior of sharks which is incredibly rare, known only here in the waters around Cozumel. The sharks are the icing on the cake to some of the most beautiful coral caverns I've ever seen, in crystal clear, warm, tropical water. Cozumel really is a diver's paradise, and I'm already planning my next trip with JP at Scuba Life Cozumel.
Today on Blue World, Jonathan and the family head to Grand Cayman for a family dive vacation. But first, black-tip shark research in Florida. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
Every winter, large numbers of sharks gather just off the beach on Florida's east coast, making headlines around the world and frightening beachgoers out of the water. What are the sharks up to? This guy wants to find out. Dr. Stephen Kajiura is a shark biologist. A few years ago, he joined us underwater in the Bahamas, demonstrating how shark electrosensory systems work. But his research in Florida doesn't involve scuba gear. It all starts with an airplane.
Hey, Dr. Kajiura.
How are you? Good to see you again.
Good to see you, man.
Dr. Kajiura has rigged cameras all over his plane, turning it into a flying shark spotting machine. The Cessna 172 we're flying can only hold 4 people, but that's plenty for our early morning shark spotting expedition. It's a short taxi to the runway, and we're off. Then we fly low, around 500 feet, up the coast just offshore, looking for little shark-shaped shadows in the shallows. Wow, say that 5 times fast. Shark-shaped shadows in the shallows. Shark-shaped shadows in the shallows. Shark-shaped Hey, there's some.
Oh, look at all the sharks here. It's outside the reef line. It's good to know.
We spot a huge school of sharks, which is also recorded on the door cam. Dr. Kajiura makes note of the location of the school so he can return later with his drone. Then we hightail it back to the airport. Later in the day, Dr. Kajiura goes to the beach near the shark aggregation and launches his drone. He shoots video from a much lower altitude than he can fly in the plane that he can use to count the sharks. The next day, we follow the team out on a tagging expedition. We get our own boat to follow along and stay out of the way. We cruise out of the marina and down the coast to the general location of the shark sighting. Then the research team deploys a contraption called a drumline, consisting of a baited hook attached to a weight and a buoy. They mark the coordinates of the drumline.
80.04409.
Next, they move the boat and repeat the process, eventually deploying half a dozen drum lines. Then we wait. Down below, the sharks are investigating the yummy bait. We don't have to wait long because soon the team sees one of the buoys moving. They move in and check the line. On the line, a black-tip shark, and he isn't happy. But he has no way of knowing that the team is not going to hurt him. They wait for the shark to get tired and stop fighting. In this way, it's less likely that the shark or the researchers will get injured. First, they take measurements.
124.
124.
Then they prepare a small visual ID tag, only about the size of a piece of spaghetti, which will allow the researchers to learn a lot about this shark if it ever gets caught again. Then they remove the hook and send the shark on his way. After tagging half a dozen sharks, it's time to call it a day, pull all the drum lines, and head for home. But they leave the sharks a snack for their trouble. So, what are the sharks doing in Florida? What has all this research revealed? The tags have shown that the sharks spend their summers up around North Carolina, but they head south for the winter in search of warmer water. And the natural underwater topography of Florida forces them close to shore. So, basically the sharks go to Florida for the same reason everyone else does, to escape winter. There are a lot of ways to study marine life. In the case of the black-tip shark aggregations, airplanes are an unconventional but extremely useful way to gather data. Coupled with drones and boats, Dr. Kajiura has learned a lot about this big shark mystery.
Coming up, dive adventures for the whole family on Grand Cayman.
In the world of scuba diving, there is one legendary place known to all divers, the Cayman Islands. Located just south of Cuba, these 3 islands, a British overseas territory, have become famous for some of the best underwater conditions in the world. Between the great visibility, warm water, healthy reefs, and easy accessibility from the US and Europe, the Cayman Islands are on every diver's bucket list. It's a chilly April morning in Boston, and it's school vacation week. So that means it's time for a family dive adventure to the Cayman Islands. It's a few hours from cold weather to the tropics, and soon we land on Grand Cayman. Jay Earhart from the Cayman Tourism Board meets us at the airport with the VIP treatment. As usual, we rent a van to carry all our gear. And this van has the steering wheel on the right because in the Cayman Islands, they drive on the left. It's a quick drive over to Sunset House on the southwest corner of Grand Cayman Island. Sunset House is one of the most popular hotels for divers in the world. The entire property is built around scuba diving, with a fantastic shore dive right off the dock. There's a restaurant overlooking the ocean, a pool for relaxing and, of course, dive training, but most importantly, the dive shop called Sunset Divers. And yes, you can dive at sunset. We head over to fill out our paperwork while the crew prepares a boat for our first day of diving. Our first dive will be a perfect introduction to the classic Cayman diving experience. Along the way, we have some time to set up our gear. Jasmine Fox grabs the mooring line, while Philip Liu sets up a scale model of the dive site using a towel and some paper cups. The dive briefing is easy to understand with a 3D model. Finally, time to get wet. With all the diving we've been doing recently, the kids are really comfortable in the water. They take the lead as we follow Phil towards some of the cool formations. This site is known for cavern-like swim-throughs in the reef, giving divers a little taste of the cave diving experience, but in a totally safe way. And the reefs are covered in colorful sponges and coral. We pop up through a chimney and head towards the drop-off. Here, the water plunges down thousands of feet. Diving on the edge of the abyss like this is known as wall diving, and this is the kids' first wall diving experience. Of course, we stay at the top where most life is found, and soon discover a sea turtle searching for breakfast. Hawksbill sea turtles are one of the only animals that can digest sponges. And this orange sponge will make a great snack. Once she heads up for a breath of air, we realize our air is getting low too, so it's time to start back to the boat. On our safety stop, Phil demonstrates his technique for blowing air bubble rings. The kids need more practice. After 2 awesome dives, we head back to the resort. It's only a short walk with our gear to the dive lockers, where we get re-suited for a shore dive.
Getting suited up on a curb.
We can't get enough of this great diving. We head down to the dock and hop into the water. It's not long before we're being greeted by a school of small barracuda known as Cenote. They zoom around us a few times without fear. They must be used to divers. As we venture further from shore, we reach a sandy section containing a large colony of garden eels. These pencil-sized eels live in burrows in the sand and retract into their burrows as we approach. But hunting them and other sand dwellers is an eagle ray, uniquely adapted to shovel through the sand for prey. As we continue across the sand, we find the tracks of something. Following them, we come across a pair of conchs engaged in a high-speed chase. A male is trying to catch up with a female. Conchs are just big snails peeking out from under the shell with eyes on stalks. She gives him the cold shell treatment. You can't blame a guy for trying. Soon we pass over the sand and reach a large section of reef filled with colorful coral and fish. There are stands of tube sponges. And we find the mermaid statue. Then we turn and start swimming back to shore. Just in front of the ladders, we meet a school of reef squid hanging out only a stone's throw from the shore. And we're out of the water just in time for a famous Cayman sunset. The next day, we load the van for a road trip to the other side of the island. This boat is kept at another marina closer to the dive sites on the north side of the island. soon we're on our way to meet the famous stingrays of Stingray City. Captain Melissa Hart does the dive briefing with some stuffed animals, explaining the proper way to interact with the stingrays and how we will feed them small pieces of fish. Then it's time to suit up and hit the water. It's low tide, so the visibility in North Sound is a little murky, but the stingrays are here. Stingrays are flattened fish, closely related to sharks, with a mouth underneath, used to feed on the bottom. They get their name from the stinger sticking up off the tail, which is a powerful defensive weapon. But these stingrays are like puppies. They're completely comfortable around divers. When the food comes out, they all come over to be fed. But you need to be careful handling the food because the fish are aggressive. Elise gives this small male stingray a treat and feels how much suction they create when they inhale the food. Even Zach gets in on the action. It's only his second dive and already he's feeding the stingrays. Christine is being swarmed because she refuses to hand over the food too easily. She's making them work for it. Now Elise is getting the hang of it, doing a ballet with a stingray. But then it's my turn to show them how it's done. By keeping the food just in front of the stingray's mouth, I can lead her around like she's on a leash. After a few twirls, I give her the food. Now everyone is getting the hang of it. Zach has a stingray hat. And the fish are fast. They steal a lot of food. Once we run out of food, the stingrays settle down and begin to wander off. We head back to the boat. And finally, it's time to head back to the dock. Grand Cayman is a stunning place to visit and to dive. There is no question why it has become one of the top dive destinations in the world. The water is warm and calm, the visibility is consistently excellent, and the marine environment is extremely healthy. Every dive has something cool to see. The Cayman Islands truly are a wonder of the blue world.
Today on Blue World, the spectacular spawning behavior of bumphead parrotfish. But first, rare, mysterious formations in a Yucatan cenote. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
The jungles of the Yucatan in Mexico are filled with incredible wonders. The limestone beneath the jungle is filled with caves. All the water in the Yucatan is underground. There are no surface rivers. It flows through these cave systems. In places, the ceiling of the cave has collapsed, producing formations called cenotes. These cenotes were sacred sources of water for the ancient Maya, but for us, they're also entrances to the cave systems below the jungle. There are all kinds of interesting things to see in these cenotes and caves, from speleothems like stalagmites and stalactites, to blind cavefish. Sometimes there are bones from animals and even humans. But a few cenotes hold something incredibly rare and not well understood. In Cenote Zapote, yes, that's the actual name, near Puerto Morelos, there are mysterious formations known as cave bells. To see these mysterious formations, cameraman Todd and I are heading down to the Yucatan for a cave diving adventure. We meet up with my good friend Christine Lowe, an experienced local cave diving instructor and guide. She knows just about every cave and cenote in the area. We drive to Puerto Morelos to visit Zapote. Todd, Christine, and I head way out into the jungle to reach Zapote. Zapote is located in a nature park. There's a platform above the cenote to jump in. But you have to look carefully first because there are often divers down there. The rare formations make this a popular dive site.
Or you go the second level and then it's like 11 meters.
We have a walk down to the water to check it out. From the surface, it sure doesn't look like much, but the water seems very inviting on a hot day. There are some divers already in there.
We let them go in the water first, and then we go down.
Stairs make diving very civilized.
Whew. That's my favorite part of this.
That is so awful.
I love that part. Carrying heavy stuff.
Can't forget the cameras. Finally, it's time to suit up. You have to be very careful not to drop anything while you do this, because the cenote is so deep, you will never get it back. Zapote is shaped like a bottle. It's small at the surface, but gets wider as we go deeper. The first thing we see is an ancient tree that fell in here thousands of years ago. In this low oxygen environment, the tree has not decomposed. Soon we find the cave bell formations, which look like sponges growing downward from an overhang. These are like nothing I've ever seen. And while they look like sponges, they definitely don't feel like them. They're as hard as stone, made of tiny crystals all growing on top of each other. In most caves, speleothem formations like stalagmites and stalactites were formed long ago during ice ages when sea levels were lower, so the water table was lower. At the time, the caves were not submerged, they were dry. The speleothems were formed by water dripping from above, leaving trace elements of calcite that formed icicle-looking structures of stone. But the bell formations have been thorium dated, and they've formed within the last 5,000 years, meaning the water level has not been low enough during this time for them to have formed in air. They're actually forming underwater. Scientists are not sure exactly how they form. But they're only found in 7 cenotes in the world, all of them within a few miles of Zapote. The current theory is that there's something special about the water chemistry in these 7 cenotes, and there might be a special bacteria involved in the process. But somehow, calcite crystallizes into these formations, which start as small nubs and then grow downward, getting wider as they grow, like bells. Since they're thought to be formed by a unique relationship with bacteria, they're often referred to as biothems rather than speleothems. Analysis of the growth patterns has shown that the formations grow only 1 millimeter every 10 years. But even growing that slowly, after about 4,000 years, they get so big and heavy, weighing hundreds of pounds, that they break under their own weight. They fall to the bottom of the cenote nearly 200 feet deep. As we wander around the entire circumference of the cenote, we can observe thousands of these formations. But they only grow in a narrow depth range of about 100 feet deep. It's possible that the water chemistry is only right to form the bells for a narrow range of depths. As we get a little deeper, the water gets cloudier. We're entering a toxic hydrogen sulfide layer produced by decomposition of organic material that falls in from the forest above. The bells seem to form right at the edge of the hydrogen sulfide layer. Christine leads us into the center of the cenote to have a look at the tree. Carbon dating tells us that this tree is about 3,500 years old, but it's well preserved down here. And on one part of the tree, there are little bells forming. They start out as just tiny little nubs. The fact that they're forming on a tree of known age was the first clue that helped researchers understand that the bells form underwater. We spent a long time down at 100 feet, so now it's time to head up and do a decompression stop in the shallows before we can head to the surface. We spend some time looking at the plants thriving in the sunshine. And of course, hoping nobody jumps on us from the platform. Whoa! And we can't leave without cameraman Todd taking the plunge from the platform. Cenote is an amazing place. Every time I think I've seen it all, I get to see something new that I had no idea even existed. The cave bell formations are super rare and so mysterious that scientists still don't even know exactly how they form. It's just another fascinating mystery of the blue world. The Republic of Palau is an island nation consisting of more than 500 beautiful, unspoiled islands in the Pacific. This blue water paradise is a top destination for scuba divers from around the world. There's something for everyone here in Palau, including massive coral caverns, beautiful reefs, ship and plane wrecks from World War II, high-energy reef hook dives in strong current, sharks, and even swarms of harmless jellyfish. And among all the fish frequently seen here, the bumphead parrotfish, growing to more than 1 meter in length, is one of the biggest. This magnificent fish survives by chewing the algae from the reef with its massive front teeth. Because of its size, the bumphead parrotfish has been overfished throughout the Pacific. But in Palau, protection since 2006 has created one of the largest and most healthy bumphead populations in the world. Located 500 miles east of the Philippines in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, Palau is well off the beaten path, a remote oasis in the sea. Julia and I have come here to dive for a week with the Rock Island's Aggressor, a luxury dive yacht based in Palau. We will live, eat, sleep, and dive from this beautiful boat. Today we're heading out to do a dive at a famous site called Chandelier Cave. A short boat ride later, we reach a spot with a spooky hole in the sea floor. As we head into the cave, I immediately start to wonder about doing a cave dive without proper cave diving gear. But this cave has something making it different from most of my cave dives. The chambers are only 3/4 full of water. So we are in a true cave with no ambient sunlight, but we can surface to breathe. That's why they can bring open water divers in here without cave training or serious cave diving gear. In an emergency, you can always surface to breathe. Inside, there are beautiful flowstone formations, still forming from dripping water above the surface. As we explore further, I can see a change in color on the formations, indicating the boundary layer called the havoc line. The white rock above the line indicates the freshwater layer. The darker rock below the line has marine growth from the seawater layer. Of course, during the last ice age, when so much water was locked up in glaciers, the oceans were 100 meters lower. This cave would have been bone dry. I'm swimming across the ceiling of a huge room. 15,000 years ago, I would have to walk on the floor 50 feet below. I follow our guide into the next room. There's a place where we can climb up out of the water a little. This allows me some leverage to lift my heavy camera out of the water for a shot of the room. As we continue back out of the cave, the walls below the halocline show patterns created by thousands of years of being eroded and dissolved by seawater. The softer parts have dissolved away, but the harder parts, probably marine creatures encapsulated within the ancient reef limestone, are still there, defiantly sticking out. Soon we can see the light of the entrance and make our way back to the sun. After the dive, we head back to the aggressor. Later, we enjoy an amazing Palau sunset. Early, and I mean early, the next morning we get up for a special dive briefing. Each month on the new moon, the bumphead parrotfish spawn. It happens really early in the morning. We need to be in the water by 7 a.m. You can tell I'm not really awake yet, but I need to get my game face on because this is an important shoot for our upcoming IMAX film, Secrets of the Sea. We suit up with anticipation that the fish will spawn and we'll be able to get good shots of it for our IMAX film. When we reach the spot where the fish spawn, I can already count 6 other boats. Our captain jockeys for a good position.
1, 2, 3.
I hit the water and quickly look around. I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to be looking for. I've never seen this spawning event before. Then I notice deep below, fish gathering. But all around me, divers everywhere. I slowly sink down into the midst of the fish. It's deeper than I expected. They don't seem to be doing anything, but you know they're up to something because you don't normally see this many bumphead parrotfish together. There's hundreds, maybe thousands of them. But then something changes. The fish all start swimming in the same direction. As the females get ready to release their eggs, they swim in order to release them over a larger area so they can't be eaten by predators as easily. The males follow, waiting for their chance to spawn. Meanwhile, I'm swimming as hard as I can to keep up. With this much exertion at 90 feet, I'm going through my air quickly. I won't have long to get the shots. Then it starts. The females rise up in the water column to release their eggs with a dozen males following. When the female releases the eggs, the males rush in to be the first to fertilize them. The entire school of bumpheads breaks up into smaller groups that are spawning. They leave behind thick clouds of eggs, the next generation of bumpheads. I must keep swimming to stay with the fish and ahead of the other divers, but I slow down as much as I can to keep my shots steady. And I'm getting lucky. I'm right in the middle of the action. Julia, who's filming me, is staying back just a little so she won't get in my shots. Soon it seems like the action is winding down. I mean, how long can they keep at it? I'm kind of hoping it's over because I'm getting low on air. But then another spawning run right in front of my camera. Perfect. However, now we really have to go. Julia and I are both low on air. So we rise up to 20 feet for a safety stop, and Julia does a victory dance. I can't believe our luck. I have the shots in the can. Even though we are done, the fish aren't. Deep down below us, the spawning is still happening. It's killing me that I can't go back down there, but I just don't have enough air for that. Or energy. Palau is one of the most amazing dive destinations on Earth. Chandelier Cave gives open water certified divers a chance to get a feel for what cave diving is like. And Palau's spectacular marine life means there's always something to see. Bumphead parrotfish, highly endangered in other places, thrive here because of Palau's commitment to the protection of the marine environment. It gives us the chance to see true spectacles of the blue world.
Today on Blue World, Jonathan explores the longest submerged cave in the world. But first, the whole family dives a wreck off Grand Cayman. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
It's spring break, so the family and I are heading out on a dive adventure. We take off from gloomy Boston and land in beautiful Grand Cayman. We're staying at Sunset House, one of the premier dive resorts on an island known around the world for its fabulous diving. Grand Cayman is located in the Caribbean, south of Cuba. The family and I have had some fabulous dives. We've seen lots of marine life, healthy reefs, and of course, we've played with stingrays. But today we're heading out on another adventure. Jasmine and Phil ready the boat for a special dive we've been looking forward to doing. It's a short boat ride to the site, but we have time to set up our gear and get ready. Phil gives us a briefing for our dive on the wreck of the Kittywake.
1.6 feet long. It was born in...
The USS Kittywake was a 251-foot-long submarine rescue vessel which served for 50 years in the U.S. Navy, eventually being decommissioned in 1994. In 2011, it was intentionally sunk as an artificial reef on Grand Cayman. If the Kittywake sounds familiar, it may be because of this guy.
Jake! Hi! How you doing, man?
8 years ago, we got a young fan named Jake scuba certified and took him to Grand Cayman on an adventure. The first dive we did together after he got his certification was the Kittywake. At the time, it was a brand new wreck, having been sunk only months before. 8 years later, things have changed. Originally, it was nearly upright. But after 8 years of storms, the wreck has tipped on its side. The family and I sink down and start exploring at the stern, checking out the giant propeller. Back when Jake and I dove here, the prop was completely out of the sand. But now the ship has settled so much that one blade of the prop is completely buried. We swim up and over the wreck and into the ship. Because there are so many openings, you're never out of sight of an exit, so this is completely safe for experienced divers like us. Because the ship is tilted on its side, it gives divers a weird vertigo. My brain has a hard time interpreting which way is up, but Elisa's bubbles go straight up. In the engine room, we can find one of the V12 engine blocks that once powered the ship. Eventually, Liam leads the way up through the smokestack back into the blue. Back when Jake and I dove the Kittywake, the wreck was so new that there was barely any marine growth. But now the ship is covered in red encrusting sponges, coral, and algae. Jake had a great time playing with the wheel on the bridge as if he was driving the ship. Now the wheel's covered in growth that Elise doesn't want to touch. And the bridge itself has been torn off by storms. Liam isn't afraid of the marine growth. We follow Jasmine, and she points out the water cannon which was used for fighting fires on other boats. It has some stinging hydroids on it, so Liam isn't sure he wants to touch it. Elise takes a break on the cargo boom, because diving is really tiring, and there's a great view. But Christine found something you don't normally see on a wreck. A grouper is actually visiting a cleaning station behind a ladder. It takes him a while to get used to my presence, but once he decides I'm not a threat, he opens his mouth to allow tiny cleaner gobies to clean his teeth. It's an unspoken rule of the sea. Nobody eats the cleaner fish. Eventually, the cleaning is over and the grouper heads out. We take a cue from the fish and head back to the surface.
That dive was amazing. The ship on its side makes everything so much cooler.
Man, the wreck is so much more interesting than it was in 2009. Not only is the tilt just really spooky and cool, but just the whole atmosphere of the wreck has gotten much more, I can't really describe it, like ethereal. Just swimming through it is so much fun. I'm betting the kids had a blast.
In the 8 years since I last dove the Kittywake, the wreck has changed significantly. It has tilted on its side, sunk into the sand, lost some of its superstructure, and grown more marine life. But all of these changes have only made the wreck more interesting to dive. It's more colorful, more fun, and there's more to see. Like a fine wine, wrecks usually get better with age, and the Kittywake is no exception. The jungle of the Yucatan is filled with mysteries and adventure. For miles and miles, it's only trees, with no sign of rivers or lakes. But there are rivers. They flow underground through vast cave systems. In a few places, the ceiling of the cave has collapsed, creating cenotes, entrances to the cave systems. In one cenote, called Zapote, we explored unusual formations called cave bells, formed by bacteria. But the toxic hydrogen sulfide layer prevented us from going too deep to explore much of the cave. About an hour drive away from Zapote is another cenote. This one will allow us to really explore. Cameraman Todd and I are on an epic adventure to the Yucatan of Mexico. Of course, whenever we go cave diving in the Yucatan, we meet up with our good friend Christine Lowe, an experienced local cave diving instructor who knows all the good spots. And our adventure begins on a nice, smooth dirt road into the jungle.
Hello.
Soon we arrive at Cenote Nahoch. The owners of the cenote have built a bit of a tourist attraction around it, with an observation tower and some zip lines. But for us, it's all about the diving. Nahoch Nachich, which means giant bird cage, is a cave system that stretches over 42 miles and has 36 different cenotes providing access. Cenote Nahoch is right in the center of the whole thing. And we're definitely not going to see much of this huge system in one dive.
And we're also going to dive in that direction.
Christine walks us through the facilities. Then we review the dive plan.
So a little Mayan lesson, Nahoch Nachich means giant bird cage.
Giant bird cage? How cool is that? This is my place, baby! Because there are so many different routes, we have to make a careful plan on where we're going and what is involved. But we can't dive until all the gear is ready. This is a popular place for cave divers, so they have a really nice setup. Finally, the fun part.
You gotta get your mask just right, because once you put your helmet on, you can't really adjust it.
Then we follow Christine down into the crystal clear water. As we prepare to leave the cavern zone, where we can see light from the sun, Christine ties off a line. The permanent cave lines start a few hundred feet further into the cave to keep open water divers from following them. So we start with our own line that leads from there back to the cavern zone. Since every dive team places their own line from the main line back out of the cave, each team always knows when there are other divers in the cave. Reaching the main line, Christine ties our team's reel to the line. Then she places a marker called a cookie on the line. That marker has her name on it, so nobody else will take it out by mistake. Cenote is known as one of the most beautiful caves in the Yucatan with good reason. Everywhere we look, there are gorgeous formations. In some areas, we're very shallow, and the water doesn't completely fill the cave, so there are huge air pockets above our heads. In theory, you could stick your head up in there and have a conversation. However, since these air pockets don't directly connect to the air outside the cave, there's no way of knowing if the air is safe to breathe. But it looks cool, like an upside-down puddle above our heads. As we swim weightlessly through these winding passages, it's hard to believe that 15,000 years ago, these passages were dry. Back then, during the last ice age, sea levels were much lower, so the water table in the jungle was lower too. These caves were bone dry. We could have walked through this cave back then. And the evidence is here. Formations hanging from the ceiling, called stalactites, were created by dripping water, almost like icicles of stone. When the dripping water hit the floor of the cave, the result was stalagmites. And as those two formations grow, they can meet in the middle, forming a column. Soon we reach our first jump. We're going to leave the main line and go down a side passage. So we have to make what is called a jump over to another line. The side passages already have permanent lines in them, but they don't connect to the main line because that can be confusing. So we put our own line between them, temporarily. Christine ties a spool to the main line. Then we swim across the jump and tie on to the line on the side passage. When we return, this jump line ensures that we can find the main line again. This is one of the unbreakable rules of cave diving. Never be out of sight of the line that leads all the way to the entrance. Soon we come into an amazing room filled with crazy formations known as helictites. Helictites are thin little whisker-like formations that go sideways off the drip formations. Nobody's quite sure how they form. For a long time, the prevailing theory was that they're formed by wind blowing dripping water sideways. But more recent evidence suggests that surface tension caused by a special kind of bacteria may be the cause. Either way, they grow in a dry cave, not a submerged cave. As we keep going, Christine leads us through very large rooms. The crystal clear water flows beneath the forest, the lifeblood of the Yucatan. And most of the time, we're no deeper than 30 feet. Just above our heads, a thick tropical jungle. While some of the formations are opaque, some of them allow light to pass, like a flashlight behind a finger. Our goal is to leave nothing but bubbles and pristine cave behind. A beautiful flowstone formation reminds me of a waterfall, frozen in time, sculpted in stone. A formation like this takes thousands of years to form. Finally, it's time to turn back. Another firm rule of cave diving is that you can only use 1/3 of your air to get into the cave. You use another third to get back. That leaves the last third for unexpected delays. Soon we get back to the jump, and Christine spools up her jump line as we cross back to the main line. The arrows point the way out, because obviously following the line in the wrong direction would be disastrous. People think cave divers are nuts, but look at the things we get to see. As we swim back to the entrance, and it's a long swim, I have time to think about how far this cave goes. We swam only a half a mile into a cave which is 42 miles long. But a few years ago, cave explorers linked this cave to another huge system called Sak Aktun. Then they linked Sak Aktun to a system called Dos Ojos. These three systems together are now the longest underwater cave in the world, stretching 215 miles. And with that humbling fact in mind, finally we make it back to the cavern zone where we can see the light from the sun. Fortunately, we never went deeper than 30 feet, so even though our dive was 2 hours long, we have no decompression to do.
Woo! Wow! Man, that was great. Stunning. What a gorgeous environment that is. My lower back is like on fire.
I feel incredibly lucky to have visited Nahochna Cheech. Never mind the fact that I can brag about diving the longest known submerged cave in the world. It's just a beautiful cave with crystal clear water, almost no current, and shallow enough to stay for hours. Indeed, a treasure of the blue world.